Welcome, welcome. Put on your best dad jumpers and outfits. We're going back to the 80s for some Southern Territories wrestling action.
Yeah, we're going to head out tonight on this Thanksgiving and see some wrestling.
Some wrestling.
Some stars at the Cade.
But yeah, we're talking Starrcade 84, which is the second what became an annual event of Starrcade. We did cover Starrcade 83 a while back.
We did, and what a show it was. I would definitely recommend and plug this. If you haven't caught our previous Starrcade review, give it a watch, give it a chance. Something just kind of entered my mind there as we came out of the intro. So we got Starrcade, which is our Southern NWA WCW mega event. And then on the other side, you have WrestleMania, which is your Northeastern kind of WWF, WWE entertainment extravaganza. Do you think that maybe both names would be better if they were swapped around to the other companies? Like if WWE was Starrcade, since they're all about the stars and entertainment, and NWA was WrestleMania because they're all about the wrestling.
That would kind of make more sense. But it's funny because whenever I hear Starrcade, I always immediately think of like the Jim Crockett era in the mid 80s. And I mean, these two guys, Dusty and Flair, because, Dusty was the guy that came up with the idea for Starrcade, of course. So I always think these guys and Bloody Wahoo and what's his face? Mumbly Joe, Ricky Steamboat.
Yes. And we're actually going to get a decent look at Dusty in action this time round, because last year when he showed up, he was just really, cutting promos. Remember, he tried to cut that promo, but the sound went, so you couldn't hear
the
what
sound cut out. That was hilarious.
But now we're actually going to see him in the ring going one-on-one with the Nature Boy Ric Flair in the $1 Million Challenge.
Yeah. So we had Flair for the gold in the previous Starrcade, and then we got $1 Million Challenge.
$1 Million Challenge. Whoever wins this match is going to be $1 million richer, folks.
Yeah. It's funny. I finished reading that really good Flair biography book a few months back, and it's really good learning the earlier parts of these guys' careers because Flair, was on the road for a while back in the 70s with Dusty, and when he was green and sort of learning the ropes, as it were, learned a lot from Dusty Rhodes. He dyeing his hair blonde, and then he took on the name. He was even wanted to take on a name that was inspired by Dusty Rhodes, but Dusty suggested not to, and ended up going with different, in-ring name. And they, did briefly had tag team for a while as well in the 70s, which is weird to think about when you see them fighting here.
Yes,
when Flair was like big, he was much bigger in his early days.
Yeah, that was during his powerlifting.
He was probably like too puffy and beefy, and then he slimmed down.
Yes, Rambling Ricky Rhodes, I believe.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, Dusty, he gave him some solid advice. Be your own man. Or at the very least, don't be me. Don't rip me off.
But yeah, like both of them would have like such memorable careers and that, and then you had all the bloody what is it? The world. I always get mixed up all the different Southern kind of pay-per-view stuff. All the ones with the crazy scaffoldings above the ring and all that he would come up with. That were such bizarre matches.
The Great American Bash and
American Bash, and then you'd have like ones with like bloody Legion of Doom or whatever, and there was one where Jim Cornette's up on the scaffolding and he falls down and I think he broke his leg or dislocated something. It's like a really bad bump.
Did his knees in for all time. Yeah. But yeah, here
there's definitely some real danger in some of those events.
Cade 84. And we see Tony Schiavone here, and he actually is Tony Schiavone this year, not Tony Schiavone as
Tony Jabroni. No, he's one of my all-time favorite commentators. I love actually hearing him in the 80s being enthusiastic about wrestling and being full of passion and being like a professional, like he was for a long time.
Yes.
And another guy that was a proper, sports commentator before he got into wrestling and that. So him right up into the early 90s, he was great. But after that, no.
He's like, yeah, at this point of his career, he's like the perfect backstage interview announcer
Yeah.
guy. He just clean cut, fresh faced, and full of energy, definitely into what he's doing, and he just suits the role really well.
Like I always
You
really liked his voice too. Like I can happily listen to like Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, or bloody um, Tony Schiavone, or Jr. or Jerry Law. There's a bunch of guys I could just listen to them talk about anything. Like they got such great voices.
It's like we have a few elderly folks here in attendance tonight
Yeah, yeah.
in the crowd. Some of the more mature individuals in our society have attended Starrcade
Yeah, but
'84.
that's like Southern wrestling though. It's like for everyone. Like even though because there's this kind of bizarre thing with the WWF in the 80s and WrestleMania. It's like, oh, we're trying to appeal to the masses. And I'm like, well, motherfucker, the Southern wrestling was the masses. Everybody went to it.
Exactly, and even though I singled out those old people just because they
Yeah,
happen to be in the picture, realistically, these type of events drew people of all ages. You know, we got families and their kids, we got old
yeah,
people, we got multi-generational families here attending these events, which is a pretty cool thing. Not like your typical modern day middle-aged dudes in black t-shirts, which is what
yeah.
most of the crowd seems to be
Uh,
these days.
yeah, some of the territories ones, you might have like, a local venue where people have gone to weeks or years and seen house shows and gone back year after year and watched stuff, as well as these big events came along.
One thing they do a lot during this show as well is they constantly replay the end of the previous year's Starrcade. Like I'd
Yes.
say you must see you probably see that image of Ric Flair beating Harley Race at least 4 or 5 times throughout the show, which is pretty cool because especially the WWF didn't often do that. Like once they kind of moved on, that was it. They were moving forward. They rarely looked back. Whereas here in the NWA, they seem to really appreciate the history of what came before, and it
Yeah,
really does feel like you're watching an actual sequel to a big event that happened
it does.
previously, and they're making a big deal out of the previous event. Yeah, and we're going to have legendary duo of Gordon Soley, who is a fantastic commentator, doing commentary tonight. We're also going to have Bob. I just sound like I shit my pants. CAALLLL. He will also be doing commentary. Fans, I think I just pooped my pants. Over to you, Gordon.
Yeah, you can't
So
beat
yeah,
Gordon Soley.
yeah, Gordon
I mean, you
Soley.
probably
He'll,
could. You could put him on 2x4 or something. I mean, you can't beat his voice though.
oh, he's so good. And like, I think we mentioned it when we were covering the previous Starrcade. He comes across as such a legitimate. Like he could be reading the news, the evening
Yeah,
news. He
yeah.
just seems like that type of guy, like a real world sophisticated dude. He probably could have been many other things apart from a wrestling commentator, but for whatever
Yeah, for
reason, he
sure.
chose this crazy business.
Yeah, it's funny seeing like a lot of the guys in the 70s and 80s, a lot of them were from like access channels and weather channels and all kinds of places that ended up going to become wrestling commentators.
Love seeing the referee here in these
The
these early
yellow.
shots. Look,
Yeah.
yeah, looks like he's going to try and you know be like Kill Bill or whatever in his all
Yeah.
yellow
Or
gear.
he
He
might
just needs
or he
black
might be gonna like
stripes.
service your car, do an oil change. It's like
And you'll see that's another thing you'll notice of from this era as well. The referees, they really do come in all shapes and sizes and attires.
yeah,
Like
that's true.
sometimes you'll see them wearing wild get-ups like this. Other times they'll be wearing
Sometimes
like
I'm
a
like, did
blue shirt
someone
and a
walk in
bow
who's not
tie.
supposed to be there when I see these weird
Yeah,
colored outfits?
sometimes just like it's like he's a dude wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and he's your referee.
Yeah,
You know.
occasionally it's like, is that like a fan or someone's uncle's just walked in? It's like, oh, that's the ref.
But yeah, it's a big deal here. Now, one thing, you know, and it's probably going to be, we did mention this with the previous Starrcade we covered, and we also mentioned it for the early WrestleManias. We are in the era of undercards just filled with short matches that are not
Yeah,
bad, but they're not exactly memorable either. You know, like like
no,
and like so you're probably going to hear us maybe say that a few different times tonight, that like such and such a match was good, but we don't really remember much about it because it
yeah,
only lasted 4 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever before
yeah. It's definitely
they
definitely
moved
the
on
area
to
of that,
bigger
because I've been
things.
watching and rewatching a lot of stuff from like '85 through '92, pretty much WWF and WCW and NWA and Crockett things, and looking at all the different pay-per-views, and you kind of see the beats and the repetitive motifs and themes. And yeah, you get a lot of these kind of, not all on the squash matches, but all on the just, they're still given a good effort. They're not terrible, but they're very short. And sometimes there's a bit too many in one years, and then the next years you get less, and there's more breathing room, and the other matches are better enhanced because they're not trying to rush them.
Yeah, definitely. So what are we looking at here in this? Is this like from a
So
dark
according
match
to
or?
the, I'm going now. I'm terrible at chronological, but according to the chronological matches, because they didn't have a lot of title cards in the actual event when you watch it, so it's hard to follow. But so it should be Denny Brown and Mike Davis in the first match. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe it's, yeah, Danny Bryan and Mike Davis for the junior heavyweight title, but I don't
Yes.
recognize these guys as being Danny Bryan and Mike Davis
Hang on.
unless
So
I'm
go
like,
forward. Hang on, go forward to the next one, because the next one comes up Raging Bull and Abdul the Butcher,
"Well,
because that
that's Starcade.
sometimes I
We're
don't have
looking at
things in order.
Starcade 85 here. That's what's going on, Johnny. We're looking at
Oh,
Starcade
have I got the wrong
85.
one? If I labeled it wrong. Hang on. I'll go on, because I've built multiple shows and I might have labeled this with the wrong label on it when I've done it. So hang on, I'm going to type in Starcade 85 match list, and it should match up what we got on the screen. Because I'm looking at my match list there, going, hang on,
We've jumped forward in time. Yeah, because
like Crusher
yeah, because
Khrushchev.
yeah, Raging Bull and Abdullah the Butcher that we're looking at there, that's definitely Starcade 85.
Uh huh. So I've put them in the wrong order. Somebody. Oh well, we'll still come back to the other one. We started this one. That's what happens when you build multiple shows in the same couple of weeks, and when you're looking at tiny little thumbnails, it's very hard to tell if you've mislabeled something.
And coincidentally, though, even
Yeah,
though we've now jumped forward in time, we are actually still, if I'm not mistaken, going to get the same main event. It's going to be the big
yeah,
rematch now.
it's still Dusty, and because we can hang on, we can fast
It's
forward and
still going to
double
be, it's
check.
going to be Dusty. Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah, so
Dusty
there
and
they are. So they're
Slayer
definitely at
in
the
the
end.
main
That's
event.
all good. So go on.
So
So it's
we went from
85.
Starcade 84. We've leaped forward in time, folks. We've now hit the Gathering. Starcade
It's all right.
85, the
We'll
Gathering.
circle back around a couple of weeks and come back to 84 things. I've built them at the same time, but I've mislabeled them.
So we're gonna spoil Starcade 84 slightly, but only because we have to. And plus we're not really spoiling it because this is now
Yeah, so Crusher
like
Khrushchev,
almost
Sam
40
Houston
years
for
ago.
the first match,
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
which I've
I'll
seen the
bring up
red, and I
my
think
own
he's sure that there must be.
yeah, Khrushchev and Sam Houston. And like once again, so I'm just gonna count here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, like I mentioned, there's a handful of matches on the other card, just like there would have been if we'd went through Starcade 84, where they're going to be short and sweet, essentially, till we get to the big matches. So yeah, so Crusher Khrushchev, he's going to beat Sam Houston here in quick fashion to make short work of him. It's like
9 minutes.
9 minutes, yeah, not too long. Doesn't outstay its welcome. But yeah, once again, that referee, like the referee is probably the most standout, striking individual on the screen, just because he's
Yeah,
like
and you've
all
got because you've
yellow.
got two guys in red, and then the yellow. It's like it's super bright the way it stands out.
Yeah, he just but like we were saying, you just don't know what you're going to get when a referee turns up at one of these events, or like for a match. Like the next guy out could be wearing like, just a t-shirt and jeans. See referees wearing like tracksuit bottoms and cowboy boots and stuff.
Yeah,
Like it's just you just get to see some bizarre get-ups, and oftentimes
yeah.
these
It just
referees
feels
are
like they
probably
grab
like
someone's uncle at the last minute who like does this on weekends or something.
and they a lot of the times these guys, they'd be former wrestlers themselves, possibly like on
Yeah,
undercards and stuff. They've been trained in the business. They know how it works, so they're called upon to offer their referee services. But yeah,
you can tell
Crusher
just the way
Khrushchev.
someone's footwork and the way someone moves around if they've done some kind of professional athletic whatever. When they're referees and that, you can see just the way they move and they're agile on their feet.
And WWF fans may be familiar with old Crusher Khrushchev, because he would go on later on to become one half of the famous WWF tag team Demolition. Crusher Khrushchev is actually Smash from Demolition. He's
A lot
Barry
less hair.
Dorsaw. Less hair, yeah, and less face paint.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so he's gonna go on to greater fame as part of Demolition. He's gonna be Demolition Smash. He's gonna be teamed with Axe and going on to bigger and better things. And that's not that far away from where we are here in '85. He'll be making that jump over to Titan Sports, you know, fairly soon after this. So, but here we're seeing him play the Russian, the the despicable foreigner who's against good old American values, and he's given poor Sam Houston here a beating he won't soon forget.
Yeah, it's a fairly dynamic match too. You get like bloody arm drags, head scissors, and presses and slams. Like you see, like pretty rapidly busting out a lot of moves.
Yeah, and Dorso, like Khrushchev, he's a crisp worker and a good worker, and even later on, like he'll have a pretty long career. Even after the whole demolition thing, it's done its deal. He's going to cycle through different gimmicks, like he's going to be like Repo Man and the Black Top Bully and all these
Yeah.
things later on. So he hangs around the business, for a long time, um, just because he was quite skilled and kept himself in
Yes, and in the
pretty decent
'90s,
health.
he stole a Macho Man's car. That was a story. '92
Yeah.
or '93, as Reaper Man stole his car,
Did he steal it, or did he just repossess it?
repossess it. I like his power moves here, where he does like Ultimate Warriors, where he holds them up above his head, but he doesn't do any of the stupid shaking or the nonsense Warrior does. He's just like, no, I'm strong and powerful. I don't need to do all the silly stuff.
Yeah, it's just straight in, all action. And another difference between Crusher's power offense compared to Warriors is he's actually doing the moves safely. He's not risking like
Yeah,
breaking his
safely.
opponent's neck.
He's got control over what he's doing with his opponent.
Sam Houston, good baby face as well. Good selling. You do feel sorry for him prior to his defeats. Like he does get some comeback and some fire, but ultimately it's not enough for him to overthrow and to beat Crusher Khrushchev. And this is for the Mid Atlantic Heavyweight Championship that's on the line here as well. So we see Crusher holding the belt afterwards in celebration, having defeated young Sam.
Yeah, so it's a decent like warm up match, I think, because it's like it's fairly athletic, and compared to like if you're watching, I don't know, WWF for the same era, it's a lot more technical. There's not more, moves happening.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and like as I kind of mentioned before,
There's no leg drops here.
yeah, and it's kind of chalk and cheese the style of matches you're going to get, because even the shorter, quicker, forgettable matches, you're probably still going to see kind of just a higher quality of in-ring work than you generally would see on the WWF
Yeah,
shows, and that's not to knock the WWF stars. It's just that they wrestled a certain way because of
yeah.
where
I
they
mean,
were
like it,
based.
like unless you were saying like, later on, you WWF you had when Macho and Steamboat, they would be more athletic, but they were already doing more the kind of southern style to start with.
And now we're going to see a friend of Dusty Rhodes, his running buddy, the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez. He's going up against
The Butcher.
Abdullah the Butcher.
And Abdullah Butcher was already looking overhill in the 70s, so by mid 80s, he still can work, but I don't know how his health's doing. Like, I don't.
Yeah, he's already formed the roadmap of a forehead from
Yeah,
getting bladed and gigged so many times and gigging himself. And yeah, you're going to get blood in a match where the Butcher is involved. I'm actually going to open my door here because my cat
yeah.
is squealing. Just 1 second there.
It's gonna squeal like a stuck pig. No, not really. Just joking around. Yeah, I don't mind watching Abdullah matches. Like, but even in the 70s, he was kind of slowing down, and I don't know what his conditioning's like now, but the mid 80s, but he still puts on a good show. It's still entertaining to watch.
Yeah, he's a scary fucker, Abdullah. He
Oh,
just,
yeah, he's definitely tough. Definitely tough.
and it's a freak.
When
He's
he
he's
fought
always
Tiger
been kind
Mask
of
in
like
that
a
anime,
freak show.
I saw him in a cartoon as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that Tiger Mask
Yeah, that was like a modern one
cartoon.
from like it was the second or third reboot of Tiger Mask, I think from the 90s or something. But he was in that, like, and it was a proper thing. Because then there's another one I haven't seen that's got bloody. I think the final modern Tiger Mask had like Kenny Omega or something in it as a fight as well.
So yeah, we've the Mexican death match stipulation here as well. So old Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, he's fighting for his life here against Abdullah the Freak. And yeah. Oh look, surprise, surprise, there's been blood. Nobody was expecting blood in this match. Both men busted open here as well. This like wild brawl, which is something else you're just not going to see up north with the WWF.
Yeah,
You're just not going to get that type of wild action.
and you're not going to see a lovely lady with a green coat in the audience enjoying the show.
Yes, she's very engaged in what's happening here, in the blood that's being spilt right before her eyes in this Mexican death match. But yeah, as I mentioned, on screen, the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, he was kind of associated with Dusty Rhodes. They kind of would regularly team together, and at times he'd be kind of almost positioned as like the second tier kind of level Dusty Rhodes, and he'd kind of be the guy sometimes, if you needed one of Dusty's friends to get beat up or have something done to him,
Yeah,
so Dusty would be upset. Manny would be the sacrificial lamb, or maybe the sacrificial bull in this case, to get roughed up and messed around by whoever Dusty's opponent was at the time. And of course, he could also be used as a somebody who could even the odds. If Dusty's having trouble with a tag team or two people are jumping him, old Raging Bull can run out and make the save. So they kind of worked well together as an on-screen duo, Dusty and Raging Bull. But yeah, the blood is on high order here for this Mexican death match. It's just, because oftentimes, like with Abdullah, he just Abdullah and blood just go hand in hand. If you're going to watch an Abdullah match, there's going to be blood. It's
Yeah, I
impressive.
watched. I picked up that DVD a few months back. It had clips of some Australian wrestling in the 70s for Channel 9, which is in Melbourne, Victoria. And some of them had like Harley Race had a guested match. Abdullah was there, had a guest match. And even then I could see his forehead was a mess for the 70s.
Oh, totally. Like it's like a roadmap. It's like an actual roadmap. And yeah, and look, Abdullah, he kind of had a little bit of controversy surrounding him because people would be like, well, he did bleed a lot. He supposedly had Hep B or whatever, and you shouldn't be,
How would you not?
Yeah, how would you not? But also, you probably shouldn't be continuously really spilling your blood, especially later on having been diagnosed with said condition. And there's a whole lot of controversy in that regards, kind of surrounding him. But maybe that's a story for another time. But I suppose we should probably correct ourselves now as well, because when we did think it was originally going to be Starrcade 84, so things are mixed around a little bit here. So we won't have Bob Caudle and Gordon Soley on the call. It's going to be Bob Caudle with Tony Schiavone. So Gordon Soley will not be on the commentary booth tonight. But no, we'll get back to praising Gordon's skills when we cover 84 down the line. But we still got Bob. I just shit my pants, Caudle. He's still here. Fans, this is amazing. I sound like I've just woken up.
So Manny Fernandez defeats Abdullah the Butcher, but technically he does, but in the match, Abdullah just like ragdolls and makes a mess of him.
Yeah, and it's a good baby face showing from Manny to hang with this monster. But yeah, he pays the price. He gets bloodied up real bad.
Yeah, got a mess. Plus he had to get those man boobs right in his face as well.
So here we have, I believe this is.
Should we got Bart and
Black Bart
got
and Ron Bass and Black Bart, is it?
Yeah, I think so. Let's double
Bull
check
rope match.
match there.
It is, yeah. It's the bull rope match between Ron Bass, Black Bart. Ron Bass, the rootin' tootin' real life cowboy, if ever there was one. And couple of brutal brawly matches on this show, like with the Texas bull rope match, and we were just talking about the Mexican death match. It's there's definitely no shortage of kind of blood and brutality on these early Starrcades. And I suppose that audience maybe was a little bit hungrier for the blood maybe than the northeastern crowds were as well.
I think it's kind of expected, or half of the course, you expect something out of it.
Texas bull rope matches, we've this might be the first one we've actually covered on the show. We've done our chain matches and we've done our strap matches, I believe.
And we had, I don't know if we had a four corners one on something or not, but we're in the first one of these ones.
Yeah, the old yeah, there's something effective about these old gimmick style matches. They're not as prevalent anymore, especially the bull rope, because the bull rope is very it's very southern and it is very kind of Texas associated. I'm sure most modern people, you probably know what a fucking bull rope is, like So, but it's like a lot of things. The way you kind of work a match like this, where you work that weapon into pretty much every spot. You're like choking people with the rope. You're not letting them get too far away or they'll get trapped by the rope. You're whipping them across the back. You're knocking them in the head with the cowbell. It's a pretty brutal, down and dirty match. We should probably mention as well this, um, as a second in this match, as a manager, we have, I believe, JJ Dillon. Yes, he's
Yeah,
accompanying Black Bart. So this is kind of that, man of, he's like a little bit like Bobby Heenan was in some of these WF shows. You'll see JJ Dillon often coming out multiple times, managing different heels on
yeah. For
these
when he
early
was
Starrcade
part of the Four
shows.
Horsemen later on, of course.
That's right. Yeah, he's in his, we're still in the pre-Horseman era here, even
Yeah,
though a lot of the pieces of what would become the Four Horsemen are starting to come together. So we're in that kind of, yeah, that's that pre-Horseman phase here during this time. But yeah, brutal match here. Ron Bass, he ends up taking the win against Black Bart in this bull rope match. And of course we
who's
get,
who's the who's the guy in WWF that was with Ron Simmons and that and the
that would be Bradshaw.
yeah, my mind just went blank. I was thinking, he's the only guy I think of like the modern era where you sometimes see like a rope kind of match or something.
Bradshaw did have that very violent bull rope match with Eddie Guerrero, if I'm not
Yeah, I
mistaken.
love that one.
So yeah, it was an appropriate, thought to spring into mind, when witnessing the Ron Bass and Black Bart match here. Bradshaw would steal a little bit from both of their gimmicks when he first came into WWF. He's like Justin Hawk Bradshaw, and he's a real cowboy type character.
I liked him better as when he was the Cowboy Bradshaw, or the end of when Ron Simmons and Bradshaw they started off as that Undertaker, what was it, Disciples or something, and then they became their own tag team where they were just
Yeah,
for hire and that and drinking beer and all that. That was like much better.
yeah. They started off as just the acolytes, but then they
Yeah,
became the
acolyte. That's it. I couldn't think
disciples.
of the word
Yeah,
because I've
they
seen
became
watching
the
clips of it the other day and going, "Oh man, I hate when." And even seeing Bradshaw with the slick dark hair, he just looks stupid. I like seeing more in the modern era.
they became the APA, the Acolyte
Yeah,
Protection
AP,
Agency.
that was better when they were always going backstage and drinking beer and playing cards, and that was good fun. Oh man, look at that choking! Look at that face. It's like
Yeah, look at
choking
that,
good.
being choked with the rope and being bloodied as well. Extreme violence we're seeing here. Don't need to go to Philadelphia to the bingo halls to see this type of extreme violence back in the day. And yeah, we just, JJ even getting involved here,
Yep.
and interfering in the match. So it won't be enough though. Ultimately, Ron Bass is still going to take the win after this bloody brawl. He's gonna he's gonna be victorious here. But it
Yeah,
is.
I
It's
love
just
the kind of matches
it's a
where it's
different
like
style.
you got a much more believable. Well, it's a weapon, but it's more than a weapon because it's a weapon, it's a tool, but you can do so much with it. It's not like fucking kendo sticks. Oh. I mean, real kendo sticks hurt, but the gimmick ones on the wrestling are made of fucking confetti the way they shatter when they hit people with it.
I think as well when it comes to things like bull ropes, like chains, like straps, there's more of a. It's easier to get yourself or to work yourself into situations where you can be choked or be struck with it
Yeah,
or be wrenched back. When you're talking like in these modern hardcore matches with kendo sticks and stuff, like sometimes it's very obvious that the guy is like opening himself up to being hit with the kendo stick because
yeah,
it's like they don't even try to like grab it or block the strike or like remove it. It's like they're just okay, I'm here. Here's my back. Hit me with the stick. Here's my back. There you
Yeah,
go.
just stick that's made of paper. It's really
Yeah.
believable. But yeah, I like the whether it's a chain or leather or whatever, being able to wrap it, choke it, pull someone towards you and kind of clothesline them or jerk them off the feet or have them turn it around and unbalance you. Like it works so well for the drama of the match, and then selling all the expressions are like, because it's not hard to sell a choking expression if you're actually being choked, partly choked. It's pretty easy to do.
And that's the irony of it as well. Like, because there's probably situations that will look very dangerous, but realistically, they're probably a lot more safer than,
Yeah,
actually getting hit across the eye with a
just getting
kendo stick or
hit by a
whatever,
head, hitting the head of the chair and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes though the brutality is conveyed through the theatrics as much as the action.
Yeah,
And like you said, if I'm really struggling and making it look like I'm gasping for air, like that can create real drama. You don't have
but
to
that's what I
actually
love
literally
about it because
choke
it
me.
looks so much more realistic without having to fucking kill someone. But you can make it look as realistic as you want it to be, or you can
And
lose your
also
hearing
as
really hyper
well,
style and destroy your eardrums.
there had been obviously like build up to these matches and like their culminations almost of feuds. It's not like another, and I don't mean to be knocking modern wrestling, but even if you want to use
Yeah,
like say AEW as an example, like AEW has had bull rope matches before where they've just had them randomly on an episode of TV with no build up, no reason. It's just like,
it
oh,
doesn't
we're in
make sense.
Texas, let's have a bull rope match or whatever, and it's just kind of it takes a lot away from the actual stipulation. Whereas if you actually have two people who've been feuding for a while and there's actually
Yeah,
a bit of build up and equity invested in it, it
the
means a
only
lot
modern
more.
feud I've enjoyed in recent years is when they did the CM Punk Drew McIntyre because they built that up over 6-8 months, not like it's some 2 week bullshit thing. And then when they had their Bad Blood cage match and blood, that felt like an old school sort of match. Like it felt like a proper match.
Yeah, brilliant. Really, a really great example of it working
But
well
it's the
in
exception. It's the
in modern
exception. They don't
times.
do enough build up now. I mean, they do build up in promos, but I mean, real build up and real grudge matches. They don't do. They don't spread it out long enough anymore. It's all too abbreviated for the next month's pay per view, and then it's done, and before you even know what the hell's happening.
Now we're going to deal with something completely different because we've gone
Yeah,
from we've talked about a couple of back to back bloody brawls, and now we're going to look at like an arm wrestling match.
yeah. Now, is it a good comedy or bad comedy? This one. That's the decision.
Well, the first thing I will say this, and we will get to this when we go back and talk about Starrcade 1984, but we see here for 85 superstar Billy Graham, and he actually is back to being superstar Billy Graham here because he does wrestle on Starrcade 1984, but he's doing his Karate Man Billy Graham, the Kung Fu Billy Graham gimmick, which was a real dud gimmick. So here he's reverted back to his kind of classic superstar Billy Graham look. This is the man, ladies and gentlemen, who Hulk Hogan essentially ripped off to become Hulk
Yeah,
Hogan.
but parts of him and parts of Ventura or the feathered bow, isn't it?
And like with Graham, for at least for the physical looks aspect, Hogan stole a lot.
Yeah, I mean the bicep
From
thing
his
alone,
appearance.
like
Yeah, the pythons, the even just the colorful, flashy ring attire,
yeah,
and like Hogan as well, he's kind of quite the limited worker in many ways. He's more about the posing and the bodybuilding and the physique more so than the
and
actual
seems like a genuinely nice
work between
person,
the
unlike
ropes.
Hogan.
Well, he's probably a nicer person than Hogan, though I'd say he was
Yeah,
still a complete nutcase in real life in other ways.
yeah. Well, I mean, in
Um,
wrestling terms, not in everyday
yeah,
people terms.
yeah, we can't hold them to the same standards as regular folk.
Like you're not going to see like
Um,
weird stories about superstar Billy Graham's beach shop with some right wing lunatic running a beach surf shop, abusing all the customers out of the store. for Hulk Hogan's beach store.
Well, speaking of abuse, he was one of the early abusers of steroids, which was another thing that
Yeah.
Hulk
Oh,
Hogan
for sure.
learned, because he definitely, I'm sure, like, as it's probably obvious to people looking at the pictures we've shown so far, our first couple of matches we looked at, the guys' physiques, they're kind of like, average looking dudes,
Yeah, like
maybe
natural physique.
they might have muscular arms, they got a bit of a belly, whereas here we see superstar Billy Graham and he is chiseled to absolute fuck because he's roided up to the gills, like
And it's funny
he's
because steroids give the bulk and that bigness, but it's a puffed up thing for the look. It doesn't translate into athletic movements whatsoever. So you could have someone half your size who could be twice your strength, even though they're not. Even though if you're bigger than them, depending on how they've actually trained and what they've trained in.
I believe Barbarian was fond of the L chemicals as well. I believe there's like a famous story where he had to ask another wrestler in the locker room to inject him one time, and when the guy went to stick the needle into him, the needle actually broke on his skin, and he just turned around to me. He's like, "Barb, I think you're full." But yeah, so what we have here with this arm wrestling match, it's really more of an angle, um,
Yeah,
than a match, I suppose, because it's
yeah,
like,
it's more storytelling.
yeah, because they have this, they actually end up kind of doing both. So they have this arm wrestling deal, and Barbarian cheats and gets himself disqualified from the arm wrestling contest. So they instantly launch into a short actual match, like a quick singles match, but it only goes about like a couple of minutes before
Yeah.
Superstar actually just beats Barb
Well,
outright. So
you can kind of tell from the style because, like, have occasionally on wrestling they've had actual arm wrestling matches in the ring and they've done to completion without any shenanigans. But you can kind of tell as soon as you watch this one, the start, there's going to be shenanigans as soon as it starts. You're like, I'm waiting for the moment where it's like King Kong and Donkey Kong. I'm just waiting for one of them to just freak out and flip the table over and start smashing the other guy.
and uh, and as I mentioned earlier, Graham, he wasn't like a super worker or anything, and Barbarian is also like a massive muscle man.
Yeah,
So you get what you kind of expect here. Lots of holds and some power moves, and after a brief amount of action, Superstar puts Barbarian away and manages to win the fight. So he kind of won twice here, Billy Graham. He won by disqualification in the arm wrestling portion, and then he won an actual wrestling match straight after that. So they've really kind of put him over strong here against the Barbarian.
and it was just nice to see him at a major event getting to be superstar, not the silly other gimmick.
Yeah, and don't worry, folks. When we do get round to looking at Starrcade '84, we'll take a nice big dump on that other gimmick that Superstar did in between because it's terrible. It is just terrible. But I'll tell you
So
what's
now we
not
got
terrible.
it,
This next match, because
Terry Taylor.
this is actually some good technical, talented people
And
here,
Dylan's back
and
again.
JJ Dillon back again, MVP of the show. He's everywhere.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
he's all over the show. But we've got two quite accomplished workers. We've got Harry Taylor and Buddy Landell. Of course, Harry Taylor will go on to become the Red Rooster. Unfortunately for him, that's what
Terrible name.
happens. Terrible name, terrible gimmick, and
Yeah, terrible gimmick.
this
I
is
remember as a kid in the playground seeing the trading cards and and even as kids, where it was people like, "Oh, Macho Man Warriors," like Red Rooster. Like, who wants the Red Rooster card? Nobody.
anybody want to swap this Red Rooster card for anything?
No, no, just tear it in half and go home and just die in shame that you even got that card.
And this this match, it's for the national heavyweight championship, so it's not the world heavyweight championship, just the national heavyweight championship, another one of their second tier championships. Buddy Landell is one of the biggest what ifs in pro wrestling. If he'd actually kind of gotten his shit together and, not being as crazy as he was, because he's a really, really talented dude, extremely talented. Um, he would get a couple of brief runs in like later on in WCW, and even got a short wee shot in the WWF. He'd be kind of known after this for doing the Nature Boy Buddy Landell gimmick, which was kind of
Yeah.
a play on Ric Flair, obviously, and the other famous Nature Boys in wrestling. But he's a real character within the wrestling business, was Buddy Landell, a known partier and loved the booze, loved the drugs, loved the ladies. Jim Cornette has some legendary stories about the type of stuff old Buddy would get up to, and Jim knows him as well because he would go to work for Jim Cornette later on in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He had a lot of involvement with that promotion as well. Even like I believe famously had a match with Shawn Michaels there for the WWF
Yeah.
Intercontinental Championship, where they had the WWF send their Intercontinental Champion down to go up against the Smoky Mountain Wrestling's representative, who was Buddy Landell at the time, and they had a terrific match. But even here we see, like in his youth, where he's going up against Terry Taylor. And I do make fun of Terry Taylor and the Red Rooster gimmick in particular, but back then Terry Taylor was just a good up and coming young wrestler who had a
Yeah,
heap
he's a
of
good,
potential.
solid wrestler, good athlete.
His reputation had not yet been ruined by the stupidest gimmick ever.
Yeah, the
So
gimmicks. Not he. I don't say anything bad about him. Just the gimmick was stupid.
yeah, the gimmick was just awful, just awful. Now supposedly, as the story goes, Harry Taylor was quite cocky in real life, and I believe Bruce Pritchard had described him to Vince McMahon as acting like the cock of the walk, which was what planted that stupid idea for the Red Rooster in Vince
That
McMahon's
and
mind,
50
because he
other
thought,
dumb Bruce Pritchard ideas. He planted with
yeah,
McMahon's head, and you're just like, "Oh, we'll go with that." But it's like, no, we weren't serious. No, we're going with it. Too late. It's in writing. It's done.
but yeah, we see here like he really both of these guys, they work really well together. Two like good athletes in their prime and just doing their thing and doing it really well. And Buddy Landell, as you mentioned, JJ Dillon, he's out again. He's managing Buddy. We can see as well JJ, he got knocked about a bit in the previous match he got involved in. Now he's all bandaged up and
Yeah,
bloodied from his previous encounters, but he's going to help Buddy Landell cheat the win here and defeat Terry Taylor in what I would say, and just for my, you know, what I like personally in kind of wrestling matches, if you just to take out all the wild brawls and stuff, this is exactly the type of wrestling match I enjoy. You've just got a nice technical match between a heel and a baby face, and they just go in there, they do their thing for 10 minutes, and you get a nice little fuck finish with the manager interfering, and all is right in the world.
yeah. I think like the Southern wrestling matches with the manager defense, like it's an art form for them. And you watch some other stuff when they do it wrong, it's shit and boring. When they do it right, it's very entertaining.
Exactly. And I know I said there earlier, Buddy Landell is one of the biggest what ifs. It really is, because he's, we got to see about 10 minutes of him here in action, but I would advise anybody listening to this now, if you're not familiar with Buddy Landell, hop onto YouTube, hop on the WWE Network, search his name. You'll find really good interviews and matches with him. And, it's just unfortunate if he kept his head screwed on. In the real world, he probably would have been a big, big star in wrestling. But alas, we'll never know what heights he could have reached, but we can still celebrate the contributions he made on this show.
Yeah, it's a shame. It happens to a lot of people. You know, people that almost all they do, they're a rising star, but then something happens. Like Magnum TA was another one. He was on the way up to be, you know, even bigger than he was. And
Bob CAALLLL, he's disgusted with Chanel. He's like, I can't believe that J.J. Dillon is allowed to do this. You know, I'm Bob CAALLLL. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm falling asleep there. Oh no, I just shit my pants again. I'm Bob CAALLLL. Someone get me a new pair of pants.
Evacuate the arena, all that smell coming.
Fans, we have to cut to commercial. I need to change my pants. Tony's going to take it from here. Thanks, Tony. I do enjoy Bob CAALLLL, but I just think he sounds hilarious. He just sounds really funny to me.
Okay, so we'll move on. See what the next match we got here. Andersons, Holly and Owen. And we've got Wahoo McDaniel and Billy Jack Haynes.
Big tag match here. And we've got like we mentioned earlier, all the pieces of the Four Horsemen are on this show, even though they haven't officially joined forces yet, because apart from the Andersons, we've seen J.J. Dillon, we're seeing the Andersons now, we're going to see Tully Blanchard later on, and we're going to see Ric Flair after that. So all the pieces of the Horsemen are coming together here. But yes, we've a pretty big tag team match. The Andersons were a renowned tag team, and even Ole Anderson by himself had been a big star before they had teamed Arn with him. And the reason they even teamed Arn Anderson with him in the first place is just because they thought he kind of looked like him, so they would get away with saying that they were related. Like I can't remember what Arn Anderson's real name is, but it ain't Anderson. And these people, even though they look like each other, they are not
related.
Actually, they're not related.
But it's one of the best gimmicks because they do look so similar.
Yeah, great name for a tag team as well. The Minnesota Wrecking Crew. It's a brilliant name. But we see good old Wahoo McDaniel and Billy Jack Haynes here. We spoke about Billy Jack briefly way back when we did our WrestleMania 3 review. Billy Jack was quite the crazy character who he went through some tough trials and tribulations. I believe I mentioned before that years after he'd left the WWF and he was kind of down on his luck, Vince and some of the rest of the management played a really mean trick on him where they sent word to him basically that they were inviting him back to the WWF and they wanted him to show up at a show to have like a tryout match to see about, going to work for them again. And he apparently shows up at this show and they don't let him into the building. He's locked out. It just all turned out to be a horrible joke, all just to
What a shitty thing
humiliate him.
to do.
A really shitty thing to do. And but as I mentioned before when we did our WrestleMania 3 discussion, Billy Jack did not take this well, as anybody can understand, and he actually went back to his car that was parked outside the arena, and he took out a shotgun and began to load it, and was walking back towards the building because he intended to actually shoot Vince McMahon for what he was after doing to him. And it was only this one of the WWF referees at the time saw Billy Jack coming back towards the building with the gun and was able to kind of go over to him and talk him down and calm him down. So Vince McMahon was not blown away that day by Billy Jack Haynes, but he came very close to it, all for the sake of playing a really mean joke and contributing more to the downfall of a man who was probably already down on his luck. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that sad story of Billy Jack again. Because he's
Yeah, I've
another
heard
one of
that one
those
of the
guys.
Cornet podcasts is like there's a lot of stories like that in Southern wrestling of people like bloody getting fucked over, or people going after cars and tires, or getting out weapons and
Yeah. Going to the extreme, and not in the extreme wrestling context, but in the extreme of I'm going to end somebody's life with a firearm type of extreme.
yeah, for real. Well, like Harley Race often had a gun on him.
But we see a good tag match here. It's one of those situations where you've got two really good workers in the Andersons going against Wahoo, who admittedly, at least in my opinion, at this point is kind of past his prime, but he's a big enough star that he still gets a reaction. And then Billy Jack,
Yeah,
he's
he's
kind of just
definitely
coming up.
getting on in years, but he's still a name. He's not a face. Well, he's a face and a name to no one. But it's like a lot of those other guys that were going since the 70s, early 80s. No one's really replaced him as far as being good star status and all that stuff for your younger crowd. But he's getting older in the teeth and conditioning, and
It all manages to cover for the fact that Billy Jack is kind of young and green and not that experienced, but they get away with it in this match because you've got the solid workers and the Andersons, and also the star power of Wahoo to kind of cover for Billy Jack's weaknesses and lack of experience. So it is a good match, you have to say, and the crowd are really into it. And
yeah, Anderson's always put on a good show when they're not busy arguing
always put on
backstage or someone listens.
they always put on a good show, and they managed to pick up the win here as well. I'm actually going to close this door again because once again my cat is
Yeah,
making crazy noises. Just one sec. Sorry, folks.
they're great at making crazy noises. My cat Pedro is very fortunately sleeping, because usually the whole time we're doing this show, usually you're running around the house making all kinds of noises, and it's me getting up and down to try and lock him into one area of the house and let him have a rest of his dinner or whatever. But yeah, Ollie and Anderson always entertaining, always put on good solid matches. They went on to be part of, like, I think it was Georgia Championship Wrestling. They had like a territory for a while, involved in the Crockett stuff, and later on WCW, and they're always kind of around and either wrestling or behind the scenes and booking, and always very entertaining. And of course, later on we got the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair and all those shenanigans. So they're very memorable forces in wrestling that I still really enjoy, kind of in any matches really with these guys. Did you know about this one other thing that happened with these guys? It might be a rumor, but just hang on. This on the screen there. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Just when I heard that name, I always think of you waving in the Matrix.
Yeah, good solid tag team match here that the crowd are really into. And yeah, the Andersons, Minnesota Wrecking Crew, what a team. Two tough dudes you don't want to get in the wrong side of.
Oh, definitely not.
We're seeing a tiny little bit of a production improvement here as well, because obviously now that we've kind of skipped the year, we're seeing a little bit of an evolutionary leap in terms of, like, when we
Yeah.
looked at the first Starrcade, they weren't really great when it came to like, name graphics and stuff like that, and chyrons across the screen, whereas here they've gotten a little bit better with it, and it just doesn't look as kind of cheap and kind of half-assed put together as it did on the previous Starrcade that we reviewed.
Yeah, I don't mind the cheapness looking at some of this early stuff. I just like to be it's part of the charm, but it is better when Dusty Rhodes can talk and his microphone doesn't cut out on that, for sure. That's an improvement.
Exactly, and when they can actually show a replay of the finish of the match, like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they first, instead of it just randomly happening in the middle of another match or something like that.
Probably my biggest annoyance in pay-per-views of the 80s, on WWF as well, even though they got better, is I don't know what changed, but in the cameras or how they shot things, always the goddamn ceiling lights flickering and make you glare and trails on the screen. and sometimes it just blinds you when they're moving the cameras. You're seeing like the spotlights in the arenas and that you're not supposed to see. Like sometimes they show up and they just can be blinding, or it just obscures the whole picture. And it wasn't until the 90s they finally kind of, I don't know what's different, how they shot it different, or different cameras, whatever they're doing. They finally sorted that out where you didn't see it anymore.
Yeah, the haze was gone
Yeah.
from the kind of,
It
yeah, because
seemed like
that, yeah,
they would tilt up slightly too far. I imagine they've got those gigantic, heavy cameras on wheels, like TV cameras and that. So it would tilt up slightly too far, and you would catch like if someone just shines a bloody torch in your face.
So we're seeing big deal match here. We got a
Yeah,
steel cage confrontation. It's the good old USA versus Russia. It's going to be the Rock and Roll Express legendary tag team of Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, and they're going up against Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff, the Russians, and Crusher Khrushchev. He's out again now. We saw him in the opening match, but he's also going to accompany the Russian Koloff tag team out here for their big cage match with the Rock and Roll. This is our first time looking at Rock and Roll properly. Like, they are a phenomenal tag team, a brilliant tag team. They've been replicated so many times in wrestling. The tag team of Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the Rockers in the WWF, I suppose, would be one of the more famous, almost
yeah.
carbon copies of them. But they inspired many teams, and even maybe everybody's not so favorite current tag team, the Young Bucks. A lot of their luck they've definitely taken from the Rock and Roll Express in terms of the ring attire with the dangly tassels and all of that jazz. So yeah, phenomenal team, and yeah, a great tag match between the Rock and Rolls and the Russians. The evil Koloffs, of course. Nikita Koloff will go on to enjoy a nice little singles run away from his other Russian comrades, and he's going to eventually, do the right thing. He's going to embrace capitalism and America, and he's going to leave the Soviet Union and their culture behind him, and he's going to become proud American, but still speak with Russian accent. Just happy to be here, and he's going to have a great run. But yeah, this is really a great tag team match, just a classic um, style tag team match taking place inside the cage here. We've got the Rock and Roll. They're on defensive for a lot of the match. They're just being beat down, and the Russians are taking every advantage they can get. And just a great example of how popular the Rock and Roll really were as a team, because all the times during this match when they're being kind of beaten and thrown about and thrown into the cage, like you can hear the sounds of the children and the women in the audience kind of shrieking in terror as their two favorite guys are getting knocked about the place. So
Is that what I got to
it
hear?
makes it
Because there
kind
was two young kids across the street here going, really coming down their driveway screaming. So now I know why.
but it makes it all the more sweeter because the punishment they take when they actually pull out the win and get the underdog victory over the Russians, it's a really big deal, and the place actually explodes with joy when the Rock and Roll pick up the victory here. So yeah, another great match here on the card, and just yeah, we were actually treated to two really nice tag team matches on this show with what we just talked about with the Andersons going up against Billy Jack and Wahoo, but now we're seeing something totally different again with this tag cage match between the Rock and Roll and the Koloffs. It's still a great tag match, but for different reasons, and the cage dynamic you know, puts a bit of extra bit of sizzle on top of it as well. Really treating their audience to a smorgasbord of gimmick matches here tonight. We've had Mexican death matches, you know, we've had Texas bull rope match. We're going to see like we got a couple of cage matches. We're going to see a street fight later on. Like they really are just getting all the big stipulation matches, which kind of makes sense as well because it is your big end of year
And there's a good variety
show.
though. They don't feel overdone. There's a good contrast in the different styles of them.
Yeah, it really just works out so well on the night. They don't really pace their shows the same way as modern shows either. Like I kind of nearly rather a lot of these matches go in 10 minutes or under, even though for some matches, if there's not a lot on the line, like I said earlier, it can make them kind of forgettable or whatever. But when it comes to matches like this, I think it actually helps that they generally kind of clock in around, you know, maybe 10, 12 minutes and then they
Yeah,
just
it's on 12.
go to the finish. They don't overstay their welcome and they don't kind of overshadow or upend any matches that have still yet to come. Like
Yeah, I
nothing
think they
really
balance it
outstays
pretty
its
well
welcome.
in this Starrcade because you've got. I mean, the longest match obviously is the Rose and Flair. That's like 22 minutes. The next longest after that is the Magnum TA Tully Blanchard at 15, and the next one after that is Rock and Roll with 12 minutes. So all the other ones are balanced around the 8 to 10 minutes. So they balance out the timing very well, where you're getting shorter match, bit longer, short match, bit longer, and then you before you get to your big main event and all that. So I think they balance it really well. But we'll jump back
Yeah,
here because we've skipped over these ones. Back to we had Tully Blanchard versus Magnum TA for the US title match.
yes. And this match, it's not just the fact that they're wrestling inside a cage, it's also an I quit match at the same time. So not only are they doing the cage match, there also has to be someone you know, saying I quit. And spoiler folks, back in the day and even now you never hear a babyface saying I quit, so you can probably guess who's going to win this match between Tully Blanchard and good old Magnum TA. And you know, I spoke about Buddy Landell being a big what if in wrestling. How about Magnum TA? I mean, if that guy had not had his traffic accident, you know, things could have been a lot different. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know, Magnum TA or Terry Allen, as some would call him, he was really being groomed to be the next big breakout star in the NWA. They were setting him up for great things, and he was young, good-looking guy. He could work, put a good promo. The ladies loved him, and it really just felt like, you know, the cards were laid out for him, and the path was clear for him, you know, becoming a megastar essentially. But unfortunately, he would, as I mentioned, he'd be involved in a traffic accident. I believe it was like a motorcycle accident or something like that, and it really badly messed him up. He had to retire from the ring at a very young age, and he did hang around for a little while as kind of like a backstage interviewer and announcer, but he would never ever kind of step back into the ring as a full time wrestler or doing any wrestling at all. So
Yeah, the
it did put
Cornette
his career
podcast did a
short.
really good special on him. You can look up on YouTube and that, like, he really gets into it all.
I reckon that the spot that Sting ended up getting would
Yeah,
have probably been Magnum TA's spot.
yeah, that would make sense in
So
the timeline. Yeah,
but anyway, look, that's kind of ahead of us where we are in the here and the now. Magnum, he's on top of the world and he's going up against Tully Blanchard here for the United States Championship. And Tully Blanchard, have to say, for this era, he's probably one of my favorite wrestlers. He's an excellent
yeah,
worker. He's a shitty ass heel, just a rotten bastard of a man. and we're going to, when we do loop back round and end up talking about Starrcade 84, we're going to see him in action there as well against Ricky Steamboat in another great match. But this cage match, this I Quit cage match between him and Magnum TA, it's a fantastic match. I'd actually rewatched it recently on the, I believe it's on like one of the early Four Horsemen DVDs that WWE released about 15 years ago. And another match that it just has a little bit of everything. We've got good technical wrestling mixed in with bloody brawling, and then of course they're using the cage stipulation as well, just to add that extra element of violence and brutality to the whole affair. And it really does turn out to be a violent affair in the end as well. But these two guys, they have absolutely brilliant chemistry together as well. Like, they really just gel so well in the ring, and not even just from a physical point of view, but even from a character point of view. We've got, Tully Blanchard, who's just that sleazy scumbag with his manager Baby Doll, and then you've just got this good old boy Magnum TA. He's just the man who's doing what's right and trying to make his way in the world. And you got this perfect clash of characters coming together here, just to really up the level of drama and excitement that's going on here. So yeah, absolutely love this match. Possibly, I would say, my favorite match on the show overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's got a little bit of everything. Got the technical, got the brawling, got the blood, and yeah,
And it's got all the
top
cool camera
match.
shots where you like seeing through the fence, or they're like, oh, like up, mashed into the fence up close. All of those kind of shots.
Love it, love it. And yeah, just like I said, just my favorite match on the show. For like my own personal reasons, I'm sure there's people who would say, well, the tag match was better or the main event is better. But I think, as when I rewatched the match recently on the actual DVD, they have a lot of footage from the TV in the weeks and months leading up to this that was really good as well. And yeah, just a fantastic match. It all just came together on the night, I should say.
Okay, so next one we got. Hang on, let's go to the next match. Yeah, I've got a lot of images here because I'm using a different program now to get the still. So it's literally got like everything. And when it's like 3 hours long, there's a lot of images. That's one of the
Great. I know I've
many.
remarked many times before, though, about the great quality in capturing these images. It's great actually
They're
seeing
not
these
a lot
stills.
nicer on my computer, but bloody StreamYard down reses everything and forces you to pay a premium to not make it as shitty looking. And I tried for a month or so paying a bit more, and it still looked just as shitty. So I went back to the lower tier plan because I'm like, why am I paying more if it still looks like crap? But it does look good on our screens, even though it sometimes ends up fuzzy looking on YouTube. It's they kind of throttle their internet service through StreamYard with their own. I wish there was a better service around because I would happily use it.
Well,
But yeah,
considering
that's my whinge.
you're looking at footage from 1985, it looks
Yeah.
pretty damn good to me, I
Oh,
have
I
to
can
say.
take when I'm on the computer. I can take any one of these as a full screenshot the size of my computer screen. It's shrunk down, but I can when I've got it when I'm shrunk to the small file size, I can still enlarge it nearly to full screen size, and the resolution's hardly lost anything. So it's stream, but when you're running it through StreamYard, it compresses anything. I've tried sitting here by myself with nothing on the screen. It still compresses and doesn't give you proper output to what it should. That's my whinge. We'll go on to the one here. So we got Jimmy
Great
Valiant
fight.
and Miss Atlanta.
Yes, the Jimmy Valiant and Miss Atlanta Lively, and
Big
they're
Mama.
they're going up against the Midnight Express. Now, this is the actual original version of the Midnight Express. So before Stan Lane comes into the team, it's actually Dennis Condrey that's Bobby Eaton's tag team partner. But of course, they are managed by a young Jim Cornette, who's, I'm sure, delighted to be on this particular show. And yeah, just this match, look, I think I might have mentioned before when we did our Starrcade 83, there's something about Jimmy Valiant. He just kind of, I don't know, he just grinds my gears. There's just something I can just never really get into him. I don't know whether it's his weird herky jerky movements in the ring and the weird dancing and stuff. It's just that in
Is
an
he the same
era.
guy that was a Boogie Woogie Man, or is it a different guy again?
That's right. That's right.
Like
Yeah.
when you said the herky jerky movements, that's the first thing I thought of.
Charlie Brown from Out of Town and
Yeah,
all
the
this
Charlie
stuff.
around town.
And yeah, I don't. It's he just for me, it's like he just sticks out like a sore thumb in this era where we have all these kind of almost realistic
Yeah,
fighters, and then here's
he's
Jimmy
much more
Valiant, who's just
cartoonish.
much more cartoonish. But it's one of these things. This match, it doesn't even go 7 minutes. It's really short, even with the street fight stipulation. Like there's not too much to it. It's really kind of everybody kind of gets in and out, and gets their kind of gets their spots in. Miss Atlanta Lively, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know, that's actually like Jimmy Garvin in drag. So it's not an intergender match as such. It's just
Yeah, you can see
it
he's
is
got a
what it
very
is.
big face there. He's got like this with the jump.
And I know, like, my personal favorite version of the Midnight Express is the one with Stan Lane, like the second version. But I do know that there are lots of people out there who prefer the original version of Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey, and ultimate respect to them as well. And like Dennis Condrey, great worker, does a fantastic looking face buster and lots of other cool moves. But yeah, I do lean. My preference for the Midnight definitely leans more towards the second version with Stan Lane as opposed to this original version with Dennis. But still, it's a fun little match. The Midnights, they get defeated by Jimmy and Atlanta Lively, unfortunately for them. But like I said, it's very comedic and it's very short and it's not something you
Yeah,
take too seriously. So I don't think they really
no, it's like a
suffer from
breather
being
between all the serious carnage we're seeing.
exactly, and it's something to bring a bit of levity to the crowd, like after all the carnage we've seen, and also to make sure that they're in the right frame of mind for the time we get to the main event. We don't want to have them tired out too much from loads of brutal
Yeah,
cage matches and bull rope matches and Mexican death matches and all sorts they've went through tonight. So it's nice just to have a little bit of comedy just to settle our souls a bit before we get to the main attraction.
yeah. It's like if you listen to a bunch of music, too many fast songs are without a slow one somewhere, you just get fatigued on it, no matter how good it is. You need a breather.
Yeah, Miss Atlanta Lively, or Mr. Garvin, I should say, very colourful in his drag attire here.
Yeah, we had a post-match talk. I think it was Megan TA there.
Yes,
We,
looking wrecked after his
yeah,
I Quit Steel Cage match.
I love his background, which is just a brick wall. But I just love seeing like that kind of cream and the blue. I'm like, oh, it's Starrcade. As soon as I see that, even though no, it's just an ordinary. I don't know wherever the hell the event is holding. I just don't know where it was this year, but it's just like any old back hall sports auditorium thing. But just seeing those colors of that era, I'm like, it's so recognizably Starrcade. So we already covered this match. We went over for Rock and Roll Express. So we're going to move ahead onto the main event: Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes again.
So you mentioned there about where it's taken
Yeah.
place. So this is another interesting thing about Starrcade
Like I
85. It
know they had a
actually
lot of
takes
regular venues, but then they also pissed off people when they started moving things to other out of state venues.
Well, do you remember we spoke about WrestleMania 2 and how they broadcast that from multiple venues?
Yeah, that's why the
They've done
write-ups and
this.
the matches in this show in different orders depending on what wiki and stuff you look at
Yes,
because of the yeah
that's what's happening here. So we have some matches are taking place at the Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina, and then other
And you even
matches
get
are taking
credits in
place
Starrcade
in
sometimes
Atlanta.
halfway through where the credits roll and you think, what the hell, it's finished. It's not even halfway because it's showing the credits for those matches in that area and then it goes to the other place.
Yeah, so Greensboro and Atlanta are the two locations where this event is taking place. So just to get that on the record, folks, before the WWF tried to do it, Starrcade
Yeah,
did it first, and I would say they did it better because
oh, for
remember
sure.
when we reviewed WrestleMania 2, we were constantly complaining about how it would jump from one thing to another and be very jarring,
Yeah.
whereas with Starrcade 85, you don't really notice it as
No,
much.
it's
It's not
not
really a big
jarring at
deal.
all. The only thing that for me was jarring is the first time when I'm watching them going 90 minutes in, some credits start to roll and it goes dim, and I think, what the hell is going on? And that's when I realized then it cuts over to the other venue because they're just showing the local credits because obviously didn't have any other way to combine all those credits at the end because they were in different locations and there was nothing to do that with.
And as we're coming up to the main event, I am going to just give another brief little, because don't worry, folks, we will talk about 84 in detail, but just to kind of set you up here, in the main event of Starrcade 1984, which was the $1 Million Challenge between Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, that match actually had a special referee, and that special referee was famous boxing legend Smoking Joe Frazier.
Yeah,
A rare sporting personality that I actually do know who he is, on one of these shows that we review, unlike these like random football players and guys we usually talk about. But anyway,
yeah, but the
what
sad thing
happened?
is behind the scenes when they're like often doing it because they're like broke or something, or they're driving
Yes,
someone around their spare time.
they need the money. They need it oh so
Yeah,
bad. But yeah. So what happened at Starrcade '84 was Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. They had their $1 Million match, and towards the end of the match, Dusty Rhodes got busted open and he had a big cut over his eye. And Smoking Joe Frazier, who's the referee, decided to call the match in favor of Flair because he thought that Dusty couldn't continue because of his bloody eye.
that's
So he was,
that's like a boxing role, not a wrestler, or it's so
yes,
nonsense.
exactly. And it really was just a nonsense way for them to do a finish with it so
I
Flair
mean, they do that
retained.
in UFC. They will stop a match if someone bleeds too much because they don't want to get too injured. But in wrestling, it's show wrestling. It's a no. It's like, no, that's part of the table to keep going unless someone's unless their eyes falling out, and even then they're probably going to keep going.
There was a lot of talk at the time that the reason, so they did that finish basically for two reasons. The first was to have Flair keep the belt, but without beating Dusty
Yeah,
officially. But the second reason was actually because they were in the early stages of actually planning out a match between Dusty Rhodes and Smoking Joe Frazier. They were planning to actually promote a wrestler versus boxer match based on the fact that Dusty thought that Joe Frazier had screwed him out of the belt by calling the match for Flair, and that was going to be building up to a match. But
yeah,
that match never happened, and I think the next time we'll see Joe Frazier, he'll actually be doing shit with the WWF. So it goes to show you how good the relationship with the NWA was. That match went absolutely nowhere. But
yeah. Whoever's paying the bills, that's where he's going.
yeah, exactly. But this is where we are now, folks. This is like the big rematch. Big rematch from last year's Starrcade,
Son of a
and we've
plumber.
got our two biggest stars in the territory. We've got Dusty Rhodes, we got Ric Flair, and you know, like Dusty Rhodes, he's the American Dream, he's the everyman, and Ric Flair is the flash, cocky, peacock-like almost individual with his robes and the like. But we're still not fully at the point where he's closer. Ric Flair is closer than he's ever been to becoming that iconic heel, flamboyant character, but he's still just maybe a notch or two below that here. And he's actually being cheered by a very large portion of the crowd during this match.
Yeah,
It's a very 50-50 match in terms of who the
and
audience
and
want to
he
win.
would often get like cheered in his home territories, whereas when he's on the other territories, like get more booed and be more heelish and that. And
Yeah, exactly. And it's you we were talking a little bit. I don't know whether we spoke about this on air or whether we just spoke about it before we started recording today. But you were talking about how Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes were actually kind of almost a bit of a duo in the '70s prior to them both
yeah, just briefly
going on their
whenever.
own separate paths. And the way it is here, even though they both have a chemistry in the ring together and they work very well together, apparently in real life there was serious tension between the two of them at this point of their careers, mainly to do with the
Yes,
fact
yes,
that Dusty is the booker in charge and Flair is the champion. Flair is a little bit paranoid about Dusty wanting to take the belt off him, and they would often kind of clash over, match finishes and what Flair thought was the right thing to do versus what Dusty thought was the right thing to do. And, Dusty,
that
he
was
said
always a
himself,
problem through like Crockett right into when the Turner and WCW took it over, going to 89, 90. That was always a problem with like you got league guys wrestling, but who's also booking, and it's always created problems. Like you don't have not having that separation of roles. And
look, Dusty, he will claim that, oh, I probably should have won whatever match, and Ric Flair was just paranoid, and he was paranoid of my abilities and all that. And there might be some truth to that, but I think realistically, you do have to remember that we are still in the era of the touring world champion going to different territories, and that whole idea of a touring world champion, it really works better when you have a heel as your world champion, because he can come into the local territory and he can cheat to win and escape with the belt, so the local guy still looks good in defeat.
yeah,
Whereas if they'd put the belt on Dusty here, it kind of changes that dynamic completely, where all of a sudden you've got a baby face coming into your territory, and then you've got no choice but to have him beat your top guy, which can hurt
yeah,
business in your territory. So
yeah. Because that's not when it's like Flair as a heel on the road. He's helping build up those local talents, and then oh, he's cheated, but you want to come back and have a rematch, and our guy's going to get him next time.
exactly. And whatever you want to say about Flair and whatever you want to say about Dusty, they were both massive stars. But Dusty was probably better at making himself a star, whereas Flair was maybe a little bit better at making other people into stars.
Yeah, I'd
He'd
agree with
help
that.
people
Yeah,
along the way. But now, while a lot of people,
I love them both.
I love them both. I actually say I do love them both. I do love them both, and for
Like
different
my two
reasons as
sons that
well.
are old men, I just want to hug them and go, oh.
But there was a lot of people who would have been pissed off at the previous year's Starrcade because the way Joe Frazier called the finish and called the
Yeah, it
match for
was
Ric
nonsense.
Flair. But there's people going to be pissed off in this Starrcade too, because we don't even really get a finish for this match. We actually just get a disqualification. Dusty wins, but it's by disqualification. So you
And that,
won the
that's like a
match, but
Dusty
you didn't win
special,
the
man.
belt.
He's a lot of
Yeah,
disqualifications, especially like mid to late 80s. A lot of disqualifications, and a lot of like when he was doing more booking and other stuff and the other events is too many. That was like a real complaint about it was all these damn disqualification matches.
and the
Not
worst thing
just
is
ones
like
he's in,
is
but like other matches that he's booking and that.
they actually do call it like the Dusty finish, because the worst thing about it
Yeah, yeah,
is
the Dusty finish.
they lead the audience to believe that he actually has won the belt before the referee will later reverse the decision and say, "Oh no, actually, you only won by disqualification, so we're actually taking the belt off you." And so they bring the crowd up only for them to just be like torn
Yeah,
back down again.
which is fine, but when you overdo it, it's like it's like imagine you go to the movies and you'll watch, like, I don't know, Spider-Man, and he dies in the first 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, well, that's a shitty movie. But like, oh no, he's back again later. Oh, he's okay. But then imagine the next one they did it again, and the next one, are you going back to that third movie? Fuck no.
But everything before the match, like the hype leading up to this match, is magnificent, with the interviews back and forth between
Yeah, I love the
Dusty
promos
and
are great
Flair,
in the interviews.
and the match itself, in typical fashion, is a really, really good match. They have great chemistry together, and
I don't
like I
think they ever
said,
really
it's
have a
real.
bad match. Like they always like kind of bring it.
Yeah, they always bring it. As I mentioned, the crowd, it's a split crowd. It's a 50-50 house in terms of who wants who to win. So that always adds like an extra element of drama to it. But yeah, like
And
I
like
said,
Dusty can really go. He's got conditioning here. He can really like put on a good show.
oh yeah, and there's a lot of people who would judge a book by its cover, and they'd look at Dusty and be thinking like, nah, he can't move, he can't do much, he's carrying a lot of
Well,
weight or
they've
whatever. But
clearly never watched sumo wrestling then, because
yeah,
if you've got conditioning and agility, you're fine, regardless of what the shape or size of your body is.
exactly. And when it came to Dusty, I think that kind of added to the character as well. The fact that he looked like a normal person.
Yeah.
He wasn't like
Well, a
a
normal person
roided
who
up
possibly
freak.
ain't another normal person. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
But he was
Odd,
always like happy, proud sort of fella, He's like, maybe a little big, a little this. He's always like kind of humble about it.
exactly. But as I mentioned, the crowd's hopes were both raised and dashed for this match. So we get the initial kind of false finish that we think Dusty has won the belt, only for that decision to be, I think it's like Tommy Young's the referee. They reversed the decision later on to say that it was actually a disqualification. So you're going to have to give that belt back to Flair, and Flair's still the champ officially. And as I mentioned, look, there's probably multiple reasons why they wanted to have their cake and eat it too when it came to the
Yeah.
finish of the match, and when it came to who they wanted to put that prestigious NWA World Title belt on. But it's a phenomenal match, and really a phenomenal event, and it's a little bit of a treat, I suppose, because like I said, I came in expecting, I suppose we were both kind of expecting to chat about 84, but 85
Yeah,
was the
because
better
I've got them
event.
recorded and I've built the shows, but then I've mislabeled when I've done them because I've done so many over a couple of weeks and I've mislabeled the bloody thing with the wrong name on it
It
and the wrong
was a
thumbnail.
treat, though. It really was,
Yeah,
because this show overall, I would say 85 is better than 84.
well, there you
So,
go.
when we do go to talk about 84, you mightn't find the same enthusiasm in my voice,
Well, we'll,
because
we'll give
there's a
give it
lot
a
of
pause.
there's
I
a lot
mean,
of
circle back to it in a month or so
yeah.
because I've got plenty of other ones I've got recorded and sit here on the computer. I've got geez, my mind is Swiss cheese today. I'm like a reel off the name of the pay-per-views because I've been looking at them in the recent months, and now my brain's got I can't remember the other big pay-per-view from the mid-80s from the Southern Territories.
It's kind of a bonus episode, folks, because you got a little bit of a prelude to Starrcade 84. If you watch this beginning of this episode, so you're kind of getting a little bit of both worlds. But 85. Can I just mention again, though, it's actually great that the show has a subtitle name, because it's Starrcade 85: The Gathering. I think that's a cool name. It's a pretty cool name for a wrestling event. It's like Highlanders: The Gathering. There can be only
Yeah,
one.
except for all the sequels. Can only be one good sequel, but they're the bunch of stupid sequels. I was thinking we should do a Highlander talk next year. Actually, do.
We should, yeah, we should definitely stick Highlander on our
I don't want it
list.
to do. Open my because I'm googling shit here, but I'll just open my folder of wrestling pay-per-views so I can see the name of the thing I can't think of because it's not coming up when I was trying to Google for NWA 80s pay-per-view because I just want to mention what other shows we got coming out. So we'll do more Starrcades. So also got in here. All right, okay. Clash of the Champions. That's what I was trying to think of. Like they did a whole bunch of those over a couple of years. So I thought we'll get into some of them. And Great American Bash. So that's the other. So we've covered a bunch of WrestleMania stuff, and it'd be cool to get into a couple of clashes and some American Bash and stuff, just to kind of cover what else is going on in this same era in the Southern Dudes. And there's also one I quite enjoyed rewatching the other few weeks back. Before, and this is going into early 90s again, WCW era. Before we get to, before they did Bash at the Beach, before that they had Beach Blast, which had like Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude or something on like some artwork, and
Yes.
looks like a cover of like a Mega Drive game or something like Beach Blast. But I watched that, and then the end also had Psycho Sid or Sid Respectable or whatever he was calling himself in those days. But that was a really enjoyable event. I thought that'd be another kind of fun one to do, some the mid '80s Southern ones, and then jump over and do one of those ones. Would be fun.
It'd be great fun, and it's a good excuse now for me to really do a big binge before the WWE Network, as I know it, is discontinued here at the end of the year.
Yeah, and who knows what the hell they do with this Netflix bullshit deal.
I'm going to watch as much of this stuff as possible, just to refresh my mind. And I do hope, folks, like, it had been a while since I watched Starrcade '85 in full. I hope my memory wasn't too spotty here for today's show, but um, we
You've done
got
pretty
through it.
good considering I pulled an accidental switcheroo.
Hey,
But
in
yeah,
the wrestling
next
business, you have to be able to call that shit in the fly.
exactly next week, like poor old Jr. Jim Ross is reading his Black Hat book this week, and the amount of times where they come back and it's like, you're live, go, and like, what are we doing? They're just like, just go, not telling what the hell's going on, and there's been some kind of fuck up. But next week will be simpler. There will be less technical hiccups. I can't promise I won't shine some lights or lasers in your eyes when the camera swings around. We're going to do an X Park special, which is a Mark Boba Hicks theme special because he's like one of your favorite dudes. So I thought let's do a one-off show just about him, and we can talk about like him, his career, wrestling, or already non-wrestling stuff, whatever you want to get into and your experiences in it.
No, I'm really, really looking forward to it. Yes, Sean Waltman, aka the 123 Kid, aka X Pac. Yeah,
Six.
and six Pac. He's had
I
many,
never
many
got
a name.
until all the years until you told me. I think way back towards when we first started doing these podcasts, I never got that. Like, well, if you add up 1, 2, 3, Kid, that's how you get six. I was like, oh, that's so obvious, but after the fact.
Yeah, no, he's got interesting naming conventions. But yeah, one of my favorite wrestler. He was
Yeah.
just the guy. I
Another
kind of
dude
took
always
to
had the
when I
long
started
hair,
watching.
and then he's got like Triple H style, where you see him, he's like bald with the beard.
Yeah, he's totally changed his look and his maturity. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat about him. I'm going to send Johnny a few favorite matches of his that are up on YouTube as well for him
Nice.
to get a little look at and maybe see some of what I see in him, because he's not like, he's not the biggest star in business
You
ever
don't
or the
say.
most
I was just
popular
watching the
guy.
other day, like him and Kane, when they had their brief like tag team, but
Yes. So it's but he was always somebody who he was working in all the right places at all the right times, and he's
yeah.
been around a lot of cool people, and he's made a lot of positive contributions to the business himself. So I'm looking forward to talking about the highs, the lows, the controversies, and all things in between. But
I'm glad he was able to mature as a person and get a hold on his life in the post DX era and that, because like he's one of those people that could have been a out of work fatality. So luckily he wasn't.
yes, exactly. And
Could
we've
have been another Razor Ramon sort, or anything could have gone down as far as all the hard
that's
partying
right.
sort of characters.
He could have just become another one of those statistics, those
Yeah,
wrestler
like you're
deaths.
watching those
Statistics.
documentaries, going, "Oh, how did we lose this year?" And
Yeah, it's going to be good fun next week with more wrestling from a slightly different slant.
But yeah, we've got a bunch of specials coming. Wrestling ones, will sprinkle them out probably over the next couple of months because there's a few to do, and also got a Toxic Crusaders special coming up. We might probably do another Ninja Turtles one, and I was thinking we could do like December, probably Die Hard Christmas week, and we need another filler week, maybe like a Transformers topic or something else to kind of fill in an odd week.
Going to be good. Lots of good stuff to come, folks. Don't worry, we'll be here and we'll be signing the light board and representing the network as best we can, and just doing what we do for you.
Oh yeah, so we'll say goodbye from Flair and Dusty Rhodes. Always put on a good
Take care,
show,
folks. Don't do a dusty finish in real life. It'll only
yeah,
end.
don't do a dusty finish. And there's old Tony Schiavone saying good night and good luck, or something like that. Something positive and upbeat, not like him when you hear him today. I refuse to listen to his podcast. Somebody had nothing he's got to say these days. Okay, we'll catch you guys next time.
See you later, folks.